Good afternoon and welcome to this K105 digital production and conversation with Congressman Brett Guthrie. Good afternoon, Congressman Guthrie.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here.
Well, thank you for coming in and having a conversation with us today. I know there's a lot on our minds here in the 2nd District that I wanted to speak to. But before we get into some heavy lifting, I wanted to talk about, I'm excited to learn that you're again doing the App Challenge for middle and high school kids. So the Congressional App Challenge, can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, the Congressional App Challenge. It's really interesting. It's a couple of years old. We started with, there's a Congressional Art Challenge. Some people may be familiar with it. Young people, high school does art, and we hang it in the Capitol building. If you win, each district gets to put one up, and so that's exciting. So they came up with a Congressional App Challenge. So it's high school age or younger, junior high. We have some junior high, and they come up with an app. And what's a neat app? We've had from a tour of Barron County, a tour of Glasgow, that you hit the app and it wherever you are, and it shows you where you are, where you're moving forward. Had a young man from Davis County that did a baseball pitch count, so you could like hit the app and it tell you what pitch to a certain player, and just anything that somebody wants to be creative with an app. And I think in mid-October, the deadline's coming up, I think October 19th, and you can go, I think you're going to upload all the information on that to click on our website, and all the information will be there on our website. But it is for young people to show their talents in designing apps. And like I said, it's anything from tourism apps, so whatever you get, the imagination's the limit on that.
So this is really just to encourage that STEM learning that we've been seeing everyone push, especially for our young girls to get involved in science and math. So that link for all of our Grayson County middle school and high school students, you can be a part of that app challenge. It's the Congressional App Challenge. There is a link in this website production that you can actually go there, read the rules, and submit your app challenge there, and you have until October 19th to do that.
That'll be exciting. So look forward to seeing all these great ideas.
It is exciting, and when those things come through, it is something unexpected because I get a lot of heavy lifting press releases, which we're going to get into now.
We'll see those things and you'll go like the apps, you're like, wow, that's pretty ingenious. Why didn't I think of that? Hopefully they can commercialize some of these things and make some money with it.
That generation is so much smarter than our generation.
They are very good at the app
comes to
stuff,
technology.
that's for sure.
They're teaching us. Monday, you led the House meeting on the COVID-19 vaccine hearing.
Right.
How close are we to a vaccine for COVID-19?
I think we're weeks away from a vaccine.
Oh, wow.
And it's close. And I just want people to know there will be a vaccine when the FDA and independent scientists says it's safe and effective.
Okay.
No politician is going to make the decision that a vaccine is safe and effective. It's going to be the data produced from a phase 3 study of 30,000 people per vaccine, and there's up to 4 vaccines currently in final phase.
Okay.
And the CEO of Pfizer Corporation has said he thinks he could have data as early as late October. Wow. But I've heard from people in the White House that it's I mean, everything would have to hit right for all the information to come in before the end of October, but it's very likely in November and likely in December. So I think by Thanksgiving, or just between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we should have at least one safe and effective vaccine. And we're currently, the president has directed, and you hear the national media, they say the president's not doing anything with COVID. He's personally directed these vaccine companies to go ahead and manufacture the vaccine. The risk is, if it's not safe and effective, you have to dispose of the vaccine. But the worst thing he said in the world is for us to have a safe and effective vaccine in December and say, by the way, it's going to be 4 or 5 months before we have it produced. So once they're approved, we're going to have a vaccine available to be administered. Now they're estimating anywhere from 25 to 50 million doses of vaccine. Some of these take 2 doses to get through. It's like we take one in 6 weeks for the other. So you're looking at January, February. But if you have enough doses for senior citizens, people with pre-existing conditions, people with comorbidities, frontline healthcare workers, then we can start getting back to normal sometime after the first of the year.
I know we're all ready to get back to the place we were before.
Everybody is ready to go. You know what's amazing? If somebody would have told me in April that we're going to have a vaccine and back to normal by maybe January, February, I would be going, are you kidding me? When you're in April, because you were thinking by Easter we're going to be back to normal. But now that we're sitting here, just to think that we've had this coronavirus, COVID-19, that has the effect that it has, and we're going to have a vaccine within a year, is pretty phenomenal work by the president's administration, and he doesn't get enough credit for it. I wish he would talk about it more because I think that he's really put this into place to move forward. But also the therapeutics. As we've seen, the president himself was diagnosed with, and he's gotten a lot of flack. I know we're doing masks today because we're this close to each other without masks, but everybody around him was getting tested. And so obviously somebody had a negative test and ended up having the COVID virus, and he was exposed to it. But, the things that he was treated with is publicly available. There's one Regeneron that he said, I'm willing to use compassionate use and kind of be a guinea pig for. He was willing to do that. But the remdesivir, vitamin D, the zinc, all those kind of treatments that have come to develop, that's what everybody else has. And he's in the risk categories, over 70, 74. He probably doesn't appreciate everybody say, I'm not the only one to say this, he's a little overweight. And he has high blood pressure, supposedly, is what I saw on the news, and that's some of the comorbidities. Now, not everybody over 70 that got coronaviruses. It's people over 70 that went in intensive care. In March and April, 1 out of 3 passed away. That's when it was just critical. 1 out of 3 passed away. Now it's 2 out of 100 because of all the things we've learned about the virus, the therapeutics that's put into place, remdesivir. It's just been phenomenal. Everybody wants to be back to normal today, and they hold obviously the president accountable that we're not where we need to be today. But given where we are, given where we were and where we are today, it's just phenomenal. I was concerned for his health and obviously prayed for his health. But when he was 74 and he had that, and I said, well, we got enough stuff now, he's probably going to be okay. Where, in March or April, you would say, oh, coronavirus, they're going, it felt like a death sentence, in some ways, or could be. And that's how much better we are at it.
Speaking of him and the First Lady testing positive, he spent that stint in Walter Reed. He's now at the White House, not fully recovered, but recovering. And he has said there's nothing to be afraid of. His opponents are saying that he's being reckless and careless with that comment. His supporters are saying that he is encouraging the public that we are now at a different place, maybe with COVID-19, but we've lost 210,000 people. How do you feel about the comment? What's your personal opinion?
Well, we need to be concerned. I think any type of virus that's out there's still some unknowns about the virus. We need to be concerned. But I think what he's saying is, the day that you were over 70 years old and had some comorbidities and you got sick, you were more than likely going to be deathly ill, versus today is different. It is different today. And I think where we get at, and you're seeing it here in Kentucky, is everybody still manages to the number of cases. Like, we have 9 cases today, we have 12 yesterday, we're a record, whatever the rule is. I think you should manage, and I think Dr. Fauci would say, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but I know him, I'm on the committee that has oversight, and he said this at the very beginning, you manage to hospital capacity. If somebody says, wow, Grayson County's had more cases this week than they've ever had, then you say, but they have one person in Twin Lakes Hospital that's recovering, and they have room for others, plus the situation with Owensboro, then we need to kind of get back to normal, and people can be treated if they get sick. In March, it was far worse than the flu for somebody 70 and older. Now it's not. It's about that level, and we don't shut the economy down for the flu. And we just got to remember, it's people's livelihoods. People are losing their livelihood when they shut down these businesses and moving forward. Life is far more important than property. I completely agree with that. But if we're going to get to the point that we're going to shut down the economy every time there's a risk to anyone, then we're never going to have anything open again. We'll be shutting down for the flu, because people pass away from the flu. And so I think that's what the president was saying, is that, look, we've got a lot of therapeutics. We're on the verge of a vaccine. Let's keep our heads about us and try to move forward. And I would tell you, if the Twin Lakes Hospital was overrun with COVID and Owensboro was overrun with COVID, then any new cases, absolutely concerning in terms of what that's going to lead to. Every new case is concerning. But if you're having an uptick in cases and nobody's going to the hospital, then they're not getting as sick as we think they are. And that's what I think the president said. People are not getting sick today from coronavirus as they were because we have the ability to deal with it that we didn't have in March and April.
Speaking of the economy, Kentucky still has an enormous amount of people who filed for unemployment who still have not received their first check. And I know that's a state issue.
Right.
But on the federal level, they were receiving the $600 CARES Act, the supplement payment, and that ended in July. President Trump authorized on August 8th a supplemental payment for $300, and the states kicked in. I know Kentucky
100.
chose to kick in $100 to make a $400 payment. There's 4 things that have to happen for that lost wages program to last. Either a $44 billion allocated to the initiative out of the disaster relief fund is spent. The disaster relief fund's balance decreases to $25 billion. The Congress passes legislation that provides supplemental unemployment compensation. And if none of those 3 things happen, it just comes to an end on December 27th.
Right. That's what the president is, executive order.
There is now, AP News reported just a few minutes before you came in, that President Donald Trump is now encouraging Congress to not take on another supplemental bill until after the election. I don't know if you've gotten news of that, if that's new information for you, but if we are in a place that we're trying to get the economy back and stimulated, why do you think he's pushing to stop until after the election?
Well, here's the situation that we're in. So Speaker Pelosi has control of the House of Representatives and what bill comes out of the House. And so they passed a $2.8 trillion supplemental stimulus bill, second stimulus bill, in June. This is before all of the horrible thing that happened in Minnesota and all the social unrest moving forward, and they called it the HEROES Act. So they're all on the floor of the House of Representatives going, we have frontline people, we have to pass it. And a lot of it was just billing out states for their retirement systems and using, and the rhetoric was our men and women in uniform working on the streets and working whatever, they need this money, and trying to kind of shame the Republicans into saying you're not voting for police if you're not voting for this bill. It also had a lot of cannabis issues in it. It had the Green New Deal. So it wasn't a COVID-19 package. It was a liberal wish list, quite honestly. And so the House passes the bill. That's the system. The Senate needs to deal with it, and then they come up with a compromise. So they've been working on a compromise. So Speaker Pelosi won't give up on a lot of the marijuana issues, a lot of the Green New Deal issues. And so she says, we're going to show we're in good faith. And we're saying $2.8 trillion is too much money when we already have $500 billion that hasn't been spent from the other packages. So I'll get into your point. And so Thursday, we voted on a bill. She says, okay, we're going to pare ours down. It went from 2.8 to 2.2. $600 billion was cut out of it. That was cut out of the police. So the Democrats in Congress chose that their next offer on moving forward is defunding the police. And President Trump's just not going to support that. And so they were going to continue to negotiate moving forward. And what we said, I said, all right, we have $500 billion that hasn't been spent. We have $138 billion, particularly in the PPP program, which is helping people who giving money to employers to keep their employees on payroll when they don't have work for them because of COVID. There's $138 billion appropriated, but that program lapsed. Let's extend the limits on that. Let's take care of some people specifically in hospitality that's unemployment. Do specific things for COVID. And she just doesn't want to go there. So my guess, I haven't, as you said, I walked in. You said, I think the president looked at it and said, "We're not going to defund the police. If that's her offer, then we'll just do it after. See who wins the election and see moving forward." My guess is most people in America don't want our police defunded.
I know that it is typical practice to take one bill and then add on all these other bills. But it seems common sense to me that we would take one issue, one bill at a time. Moving forward, would there ever be an opportunity to present a bill that says it's one bill at a time? Because it seems that we kill a lot of things that need to happen because we start adding things onto these bills.
Well, this is what happens. So you get, so Speaker Pelosi has a bill, and they know that. So with Senator McConnell, who's the leader in the Senate, has to bring a bill up in the Senate and say, we know that Senator McConnell wants to help workers. We know that he wants to help unemployment, people unemployed. He wants to help companies. He wants to make sure our airlines don't shut down. People aren't flying now. I mean, she knows he wants all. So she takes all of that, puts it in a bill, and then she puts all of the Green New Deal and all the other stuff and sends it to Senator McConnell and says, if you want to help workers, this is the deal. And Senator McConnell has to look at it and say, well, I want to help workers. Let's pull this out, and you forget all the other stuff. And then she goes back to her. I don't know how this literally happened, but I've seen it from the Republican side. Is you go back to your group and says, well, these are the things we agree to, and all of the liberal wish list, and they're majority liberals in the Democrats in the House, is we're not going to vote for that if we don't get the marijuana legalized and all the other things, Green New Deal, and limit fossil fuels, make energy prices go up. If we're not getting to that, we're not going to vote for anything. And so they bogged themselves down, quite honestly. I'm friends with a lot of Democrat members of the House of Representatives, and a lot of them would love to get, let's just do the skinny bill, is that they call it. Let's just do this specifically helps because of COVID. But Speaker Pelosi is kind of driven by the left flank of the Democratic Party. It's like I say, it's not the typical Democratic Party that used to be in Kentucky. It is very left wing and very socialist and social democrat, as they would call themselves. To me, social democrat means socialist, but and that's just where we are. So my guess, when the president saw that their offer was to defund, literally, the House of Representatives, the majority of the House of Representatives, all them, no Republicans, voted to take $600 billion supplemental spending out of our police forces.
Yeah. And I know that as a normal negotiation tactic, it's always been the way that our bills have been presented, but I don't think we've ever been in a state where we needed the skinny bill as much as we needed it now.
I wish that she would back off and say, look, we can argue about whether or not we need police forces, not later, not now, but that's where she is right now.
Is it something?
And she controls the gavel, and she controls what comes forward.
Is it something, though, the Republican Party in the future would be willing to put forth and say, when we are in a pandemic or state of emergency, we have to stick to what the bill is?
I believe that's what we should do. I believe that.
I will not keep you much longer, but I would like to ask you, what brings you to Grayson County today?
Well, we have your plant managers meeting, so you got some great industry here, and we wanted to come and talk to your plant managers meeting and hear how business are affected, from Bell Cheese to Plasticon to Kelly Bees. There are a lot, it's interesting, a lot of people who had to stay home really enhanced their beekeeping experience. So a couple of businesses here were really helped. Kelly said theirs went up. People were having to stay home, so they decided they're going to get either in the bee system. I'm a baby boomer. I'm the end of it. I'm 56, so I'm not as old as most baby boomers, but beekeeping seems to be a baby boomer thing. It's kind of trendy in baby boomers, so that's been good. Bell Cheese, talking to them that people eating at home now, instead of going to restaurants, want cheese, and so it's really kind of helped their business. But what you hear from them, with a lot of the requirements, if somebody tests positive and somebody else in that factory worked near them, they have to go home for 14 days, which I understand that. Except, you think after a day or two, you should test them, give time for if they have the virus to build up, and test them. If they test negative, let them come back for work. But they were telling me, and I didn't realize this, that on the Edict of Frankfurt, from the governor, that you got to go home. So if one person tests positive, and I get you need to protect your employees, and science needs to drive this. But if you say, all right, everybody around them has to go home for 14 days, then in 2 weeks you're losing a shift. Yeah. And what if these people don't have it? And we can know that. We can test them to know that. And it just seems to be an overabundance of caution, I guess, is what the governor would say. I'm not sure. I've never heard him explain it. But it kind of dealing in stuff in a bubble of government without knowing what it does to real people in the real world. It says, I got to send my second shift home. So then that's what I brought up today, is interesting. So I send my second shift home, people aren't sick. I can't test them to say they're not sick, and I can't bring them back. And then they may be posting on, I heard this today, so I'm not making this up, on Facebook, hey, I'm out at the lake today. When somebody who's having to work double shift or extra shift because they had to send people home to quarantine or at work, and they're going, wait a minute, I'm here working extra shift, they're home posting there on the lake, they're not sick, and the people at the business have to say, we understand that, but by law, we can't bring them, by order, we can't bring them back. And those are just very confusing things that if public officials would spend time with the people, that's what I tried to do today and did today, to listen to those stories. So, it really doesn't make sense.
Right. At all.
At all. It's at all, does it? Yeah.
Well, and I've seen that, on the local level, when the pandemic started, we all thought we'd be home for 2 weeks. And now we're thinking, is this going to be 2 years? It's good to hear that there is a vaccine potentially going to be here.
Within weeks. I really believe that, within weeks. I'm not sure it'll be here before the election, but it's going to be here soon. And it's because President Trump has unleashed the forces of government, because the government hasn't stopped. It's marshaled the resources working with our pharmaceutical companies who are going to figure this out. It's not government researchers figuring this out, it's pharmaceutical companies doing it.
Yeah. Thank you for your time today.
Well, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it.
That is the end of our digital production and conversation with Congressman Guthrie. Make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms, like our pages, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can receive the alerts when we have other digital productions. But also, make sure that you're following our sports content with Sam Gormley. And that wraps up the K105 digital production. I'm Misty Thomas. Have a good evening.